Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about this storm, the midweek storm. It's really not just a snowstorm or a severe threat. It's everything. It is the whole kitchen sink. We got snow, freezing rain, severe weather, winds, flooding rains, all combined into one system. So today we are going to be going into some more of the specifics since we are getting into those specifics. And this storm will likely be named Winter Storm Miles. Let's get right on into it, starting off with the NAM 3-kilometer model. We see that during the day on Tuesday, we have this low pressure here moving down the Rockies and bringing in some light to moderate snow across most of the region. And eventually, as we move into Wednesday, we will start to see some of the snowfall start to shift into the central U.S., but still mostly remain in the Rockies. And it really isn't until Wednesday night into Thursday that we start to see some rain popping up in parts of the Great Lakes region and some freezing rain in parts of the Mississippi River Valley before this storm all starts to come together on early Thursday. This is about midnight Central Time, and we start to see the intensification of this storm start. Now that's where the NAM 3-kilometer model ends, but the NAM 12-kilometer model has been loading in this storm for a little bit, and now we have almost the entire storm. So at the point that we're looking at here, which is right around here, where we start to see that intensification of this storm, we have rain out to the east, but we're really watching this low pressure here. This isn't like Landon, where we have two parts, even though there is a much larger area of precipitation out east. It's just one low pressure system. And we are seeing most of the Great Lakes starting off as rain, excluding some very northern areas such as Chicago is in that freezing rain line. Then you have Milwaukee in there as well. But Detroit starting off as rain, Indianapolis starting off as rain, St. Louis, even Kansas City could start off as rain. But we start to see this low pressure here start to pull up Gulf moisture, which contributes to that severe threat, as well as clashing in with that cold air. We start to see a lot of freezing rain, sleet, especially in the Kansas City area, and heavy snow behind that, where we could see that shift, especially Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to be the bullseye for this storm system, as the low pressure will be just south of there, and we could see those heavy snow bands set up over Kansas City. Now, in terms of St. Louis, you guys could just miss out on freezing rain. So staying in that rain, which is good, but more into that flooding rains rather than freezing rain. Chicago is now being shown into more of the heavy snow, while Detroit is in more of the freezing rain. Indianapolis is going to be mostly rain. Now, we also have the severe threat down south. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, maybe even into Georgia could see severe weather, including a tornado threat for those areas. Now, as this storm starts to move out, we start to see some areas start to switch back over to wintry precipitation, such as Indianapolis potentially switching over to freezing rain, and Detroit potentially switching over to snow. Now, as this storm moves into the northeast, it will be a primarily rain event, except for the very northern areas bordering Canada that could see some freezing rain or sleet, but 90% of the northeast will be seeing rain. So that is where the NAM 12-kilometer model ends. So let's go into some more details and take a look at snow. And you can see oranges here. That is over 2 feet. And Kansas City, being right around here, could be in that 2-foot plus range depending on how the band's set up. Now, you also have areas such as Peoria, Illinois in that mix for some heavier snowfall. Chicago potentially getting over a foot. But then, as we said before, St. Louis missing out on snow, the heavy snow totals, maybe like a dusting to an inch. Detroit is in that 0 to 3 inch range. Indianapolis in that 0 to 3 inch range. So is Cleveland. But this will be staying further north. The Quad Cities could get into that significant snowfall. Milwaukee is probably in that 3 to 6 or 6 to 12 inch range at the moment. Of course, things can change over the next 24 hours, but we are starting to see some more solidification of the forecast for this storm. Now, this is just the snow. Let's take a look at freezing rain. which is going to be a thin strip of freezing rain north of St. Louis, as we were talking about before, which is a good thing because just north of St. Louis, potentially into Jefferson City, could see a half an inch of ice. Now, this includes areas around Detroit where you could even see half an inch to an inch of freezing rain. Now, in the past, the NAM has been very bullish with freezing rain amounts, so do take these with a little bit of grain of salt, but we can look at this as a pretty good decider for which areas will be seeing freezing rain and which areas won't be seeing freezing rain. Now, the areas in reds here will most likely be seeing some freezing rain. Let's kind of put the cutoff here at the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. Anything east and northeast of there, we kind of disregard for the moment since we are 3.5 days out from that impact. But in terms of areas such as Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, prepare for freezing rain. So here is the severe weather threat. This is our mixed layer cape, and this is basically the energy that thunderstorms can tap into. So we can see here that right now, very limited cape across the U.S., and that makes sense. It's winter. We don't have as much of the ingredients for severe thunderstorms, lift, instability, all of that. So as we see Wednesday into Thursday, we start to see some instability from the Gulf of Mexico feed into the southern plains. And you can see here in areas such as Texas, you have over 1,000 joules per kilogram of cape, that energy. And then you can see that, it is pretty light. We're not seeing, 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram. But as you move into Mississippi and Alabama, you also have areas. Let me get my cursor readout again real quick. We could see some areas in that, let's call that 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram. And on more specific models, that could even be into that 1,000 to 1,500. This is just a signifier because the NAM 12-kilometer model is pretty broad about severe weather threats. This is basically just showing anywhere in these grays or blues are areas that could be seeing severe weather and potentially even tornadoes. Finally, let's take a look at potential for winds, and we could see very strong winds with this storm system. This is just the precursor to the event, but we're already seeing 20 to 30 mile an hour winds in areas such as Kansas and Oklahoma, and red flag warnings are up for these areas before this event occurs because you do have currently some dry air and previously some warm air, and we could see some fire risks there. But even as this storm starts to drop into the southern plains and start to intensify, we do see those 20 to 30 mile an hour winds really pick up across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and we see that move and strengthen. We even have close to 30 knot winds, which we can kind of equate to 35 miles an hour. Now, most of these areas that will be seeing the strong winds could be in that sleet or freezing rain, potentially not snow, but we could see blizzard conditions on the back end of this storm, as this storm is now shown to be intensifying much quicker than we originally thought it would be. Therefore, as we move into areas such as Chicago, which is going to be mostly snowfall, you do have those 20 to 30 mile an hour winds that could make things very blustery, produce visibilities, potential for blizzard conditions. And as we move into the Northeast, we could see some areas such as Boston, New York, Philadelphia get into those maybe 10 to 30 mile an hour winds depending on where you are, as this storm is down to 987 millibars. So now with our latest model data and our model guidance, we are seeing a stronger storm that will have significant snow, freezing rain, severe wind, and we didn't get into it today, but also that very heavy flooding rains, just a whole storm. It's basically the perfect storm that we're looking at here, because there are so many different impacts, so many different factors that can make this storm very serious. So if you haven't started preparing in any of those areas, again, I said Kansas City looks like the epicenter of the main wintry threat for this storm. But basically anywhere for this map, if you're in the snowfall, prepare for snow. If you're on this map, prepare for freezing rain. If you are in those grays, prepare for severe weather and make sure you have a plan in place if there is a tornado heading toward you or the potential for a tornado. And if you're here, prepare for some very blustery conditions, potentially with that snowfall. We have potential for drifts, blizzards, and even afterwards, after the storm moves through, maybe even some ground blizzard conditions if the snow does end as those winds continue to occur. But that's less likely. So that is all the information I have at this point. If this storm does get named today, I will be making a much more detailed video, and I do believe this storm will get named. So at some point, we will have a much more in-depth video on this storm. This is just the current update for the storm, and if you want to see that in-depth video on this storm, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Therefore, you will be notified when I do post that video. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.